most of the major Hollywood studios, they're all very excited about this and trying to solve hard problems like how do you tell a linear story in a non-linear medium where somebody can look around, and it's not a straightforward thing to do. And there's a broad range of other applications, whether it be medical, military, education, a whole range of consumer applications. So a lot of great applications for VR. AR, we think, will end up being broader. Commerce, so Alibaba and Amazon selling in totally new ways. Voice and data revenues for the mobile networks, particularly the data piece, we think will be enormous because of when you've got much higher frame rates, stereo image, you've got a lot more data down to actually be able to get that across. Video, enterprise across the piece, whether it be construction, architecture, communications, messaging, the whole range. And then when you start to get to a very large user base, we think advertisers are going to start coming in. And then you get to the broad consumer apps, from Facebook to Uber to Clash of Clans, broader, and a whole range of apps that nobody's thought about yet. And then for theme parks, it's also being used for that. Let's put some numbers around this. And we think VR could be big. We think AR could be bigger, but it will take longer to get there. And the shorthand for this is VR's consumer market ready. You've seen some of the platforms that these guys have got. You've seen everything that's in the market at the moment. So VR is hitting the consumer markets properly this year. I think for the next 2 years at least, it's got the lead on AR in terms of consumer adoption. So this year, HoloLens, ODG, and others are focused predominantly on the enterprise market because they're not consumer ready yet. They aren't so much consumer devices yet. They'll get there, but it might take another 18 months to 2 years for them to really properly target those markets. 2017 going into 2018. So we expect VR to be dominant, but then as you go to 2018 and 2019, when some of the really hard technical problems like battery life, field of view, some of which is being solved, making sure that you actually have cellular communication in the headset, a whole range of things, which we've seen most of the roadmaps will be solved by then. That's when you'll be able to start replacing the smartphone with a set of AR glasses. And that's when the market starts to get really interesting from an overall acceleration perspective. So we expect a spurt of growth now, we expect an acceleration in about 2 or 3 years' time. In terms of the use cases and where the money's going to be, in VR, it's the usual suspects that you would expect. It's hardware, it's games, it's video, it's broader other consumer apps and then theme parks. And then within AR, we expect price points to come down for the hardware to be similar to smartphones. And in terms of the use cases and the revenues, again, not that different in some ways to what you currently see with commerce leading, voice, data, video, enterprise, and so on. Now, this is a snapshot of the industry about 2 months ago. And already we've basically produced quarterly reports on AR and VR. We've got the next one coming out in about 2 or 3 weeks' time. This pyramid is already substantially bigger. And this isn't everybody, this is just the folks that we know about. And we know quite a lot of folks. You've got everybody from the big players at the top to 1 million startups all over the place. The market here in the States is growing. The Chinese market, the domestic Chinese market, is growing incredibly quickly. And I think a lot of folks here aren't really quite aware of just how advanced the Chinese VR and AR markets are and how quickly they're moving and how much is being invested over there. So it's a big market and we're starting to see leaders. I think the important thing is that right now, one of the things that we noticed is, how do I put it? It's a really early stage of the market, so there's an incredible level of goodwill across the industry to help each other. It feels like I imagine the homebrew computer club felt like in the early days when Steve Wozenham was around. We were just happy to help each other. It's an amazing community. Now, there are lots of different ways that you can play in different slices. And the way that we think about this is between virtual or augmented, which is pretty obvious, and then between immersive and what we're calling ambient. Immersive, all we really mean is that all the different technologies come together to trick your senses into believing that what you're seeing is real. So how many folks here have played with the HTC Vive? Show of hands. Okay, so when how many of you, when the whale swam at you, would have jumped out of the way? A few. No, it's that sense of actually being there, that even though you know what you're seeing isn't real, you react as though it is. And that's what we mean by immersive. So in the VR space, the ambient ones, the lighter VR experiences are mobile. So it's Gear VR, it's cardboard-based solutions and a range of other solutions. At the lighter end, around the augmented space, it's augmented reality where actually, in some cases, you don't want your senses to be tricked. So if you've got a heads-up display and you're driving, the last thing you want is to actually think that what is coming at you is real and you can't see what's behind it. You need to be able to see. And then going up into mixed reality, where you've got magically HoloLens, Meta, ODG, and others, where essentially they really are properly tricking you into thinking that what you're seeing in the real world is actually there. Now, broadly, mobile is going to lead installed base, and it's a really simple reason. There's lots of technologies and things about whether it be field of view, field of vision, resolution, all sorts of things, but it's price. When you see mobile VR, particularly now, converging from $99 down to free, it's pretty easy for a consumer. And you've got an installed base of platforms of around 3.6 billion devices globally. So it's free, it's ubiquitous, it's not as immersive as using a Vive, or as using HoloLens, or as using any of the high-end solutions, which will cost you, in terms of total systems costs, $1,000 and up. So when it's free, that's a great way to get your stuff out there. If you look at the mobile games market, it's probably the best example of how free works. Now let's flip over from some numbers to think more about design. One of the challenges is the hardware at the moment, particularly the mobile VR hardware, isn't perfect. It gives some great experiences, but right now you don't have positional tracking on mobile VR because you don't have the sensors. Project Tango is solving that in specific use cases, but most smartphones, you can't do proper positional tracking in terms of where am I in the room, where am I relative to something. Also, some of the input devices, it's more challenging. So you've got a small trackpad, say on the side of a Gear VR, you've got a button, which is great for some sort of applications, and not as useful for others. It's not as flexible as some of the traditional interfaces you're used to working with. And so I want to give an example, probably my favorite example of taking a really simple, basic design thinking approach to how you deal with the hardware constraints and actually come up with something which is novel, which you might not have actually tried if you had better hardware for, say, the inputs. Now, Tommy Palm has been a friend for a while. He developed Candy Crush for King, and Tommy left King last year to found Resolution Games. The very first demo game they put out was Solitaire, but basically this one. And it doesn't get much simpler than Solitaire in terms of the game. Now, Tommy decided that he didn't want to use the trackpad, he didn't really want to use the button for control, he wanted to use gaze. So if you look at one of the cards that are in the game, something will happen. So you look for a period of less than a second. And so when you're actually playing Solitaire, you look at the card you want to move for a tiny fraction of a second, and it moves it in the deck. But Tommy had a problem in that he needed to have a button to reset the deck, and he didn't want to take away from immersion. He didn't want to use the trackpad, he didn't want you to have your hand up here, he didn't want to use the button. So how could he do this? And what he decided to do, as you'll see from those few screenshots, he decided to set the game in an old library. And you see, in the old library, there's an oak desk. And then on the oak desk, there are a couple of buttons. So you look down, you reset the deck. It doesn't take away from immersion, it doesn't take you out of the game. And it's a simple design thinking approach to what otherwise would be something that would be really clunky from a user perspective. So the point here is the constraints of the hardware can give you the impetus to think, okay, I can't do it the way I do it on a PC or on a smartphone with a touch interface. What can I do from a design perspective to produce, whether it be a game or any other sort of application, something which is actually new? So it isn't yet another copy of Candy Crush, yet another copy of Clash of Clans. It's something that's genuinely novel. And so I guess the point I'd make is it's a huge market, growing quickly in terms of potential. Early stage, there'll be lots of stumbles in the next year or so, but that's okay because it's an early stage market. There's a lot of potential long term. As developers, as designers, when you think about what you're building, don't just try and take the analog from what's already there. Look at the constraints and see what you can come up with, which is truly great because you've got those constraints. And you'll find that you'll end up coming up with some designs that are beyond anything else you've seen before and which genuinely stand out because they're different. Thank you.
I really appreciate Tim and Simon helping us out today. The things and the knowledge they bring to this industry is really, really helpful. As I think about this, I'm reminded of something that happened as I flew over here yesterday. Someone on the plane, and I was asking what he does, and he was asking me what I do. I'm like, oh, I work in VR. He goes, yeah, VR, I don't really know a lot about it. I don't think it helps me in my space. And I said, what do you do? He goes, well, I do safari tours. And I do sales and marketing for safari tours. And I think all of you can actually imagine exactly how VR can help him in his space. And we had this great conversation about what happens if you take, using mobile VR to help you with your sales and marketing tool. I mean, and all of a sudden he went from this is, I can't use this to this is the coolest thing ever. How can we talk? What can we do? How can I get my stuff and your stuff and let's start working together and let's go do a safari tour. I mean, exactly. This is where we're going, and we've seen the numbers. We've seen what it can do, and you guys are now the developers who are going to help us create this and take all of this to the next level. We certainly have some time left. I'd love to open it up to questions from the team for each of us. So if you have some questions, go ahead. I think there's a mic there that you can step up to. Or you're welcome to. There's the door, and we've got a nice file going that way.
When will the VR headsets be integrated with cell phones?
When will the VR headsets be integrated with cell phones? That's a good question. I mean, currently, in a way, it already is. They already are integrated with cell phones. I mean, with gear and stuff. So, can you explain a little bit more what you're thinking? I'm sorry, I missed.
Well, you won't need a mobile device, and it'll replace your mobile device.
Well, that's what SimLens is. I mean, SimLens takes the technology in today's smartphones and these mobile head-mounted displays, and it fully integrates that technology into an integrated unit. And that's the magic and the opportunity of that. Is we take that mobile ecosystem, mobile development tools, and we build it into a fully integrated HMD. And that is what we're talking about today. That is mobile head-mounted display solutions. Seabright similarly uses a phone.
But I think more broadly, if you think about when you basically stop carrying a smartphone around those sort of glasses, that's really AR. Essentially, you need something which is truly mobile. And what I mean is, it's basically you can use it anywhere. It's got enough battery life. You can make phone calls on it, and you can walk down the street with it. That's AR. So really, I think time-wise, you're looking at really 2018 when that's really going to become more ubiquitous, and the price point's really the right place where you can do that. So that's sort of general time frame. That's when you see folks like ODG with, say, what the guys at Magic Leap are doing. That's the direction. But you will see some other stuff that's actually able to do that sort of stuff early on. Currently, with the hardware roadmaps for a lot of hardware players, integrating, I've been pushing really hard to integrate cell phone capability into the AR glasses. Some of them are, some of them aren't yet. So it'll take a little while. And the reason for that is, when you think about price points, you think about the way that your iPhone in your pocket is subsidized by Verizon or AT&T or whatever else makes it cheaper for you to buy it. AI is going to need that to really get to scale. So it's an ecosystem thing and a technology thing.
Go ahead.
For IdeaLens, are you also considering doing an SDK that can be driven from like a native app rather than just through Unity or the upcoming Unreal SDK?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we know, and I've seen the charts, but we know that 90% of all, right now, 90% of all games developed in VR are in mobile are done in Unity. So it means, we built a native app originally, SDK, and then we of course put one inside of Unity. So will there be one available like natively? Yeah, there still are.
Okay, with the IntelliSense, will it be able to be tethered to a computer or like a PlayStation or Xbox and stuff?
So you're asking if our IdeaLens can be actually attached to a PC and play PC-based games on this headset?
Right, or just be able to view them through the headset.
We have that on our roadmap. It's something we've been talking about. It may not be in our first release, but it is something that we have been discussing, is being able to not only have this be a mobile headset, but the headset that you also take home and connect to your computer, and they can play play PC-based VR experiences on this headset as well.
And in that hypothetical case where you've got this added compute, maybe a backpack, the idea would be that you've got this disconnected mode, this fully mobile mode, which is at one performance level, but if you jack into that extra performance pack, then you've got even more performance and it's augmenting. So again, mobile could potentially scale from a fully mobile experience with a 15-watt power consumption to something where you've got essentially a gaming laptop that augments the performance of that platform, gets you more to 100, 115 watts, 120 like a gaming laptop today.
And what we're also seeing in that regard, you've got some headsets where they are standalone and they've got battery life of a few hours. but then they've got battery packs with other capabilities built in, including cellular capability, where you can get all-day battery life. So again, it's a question of form factor and functions to what you're trying to achieve with it. For an enterprise user, actually you want a longer battery life, so having an external box, fine. For your average consumer, they want to bundle one device in the main, so you need to get more battery life into that device for a lot of consumers for it to go mass.
Yes, go ahead.
For Idea Lens, what are you thinking as far as kind of like the app release ecosystem? What type of store are you going through? Are you going through Google Play? Are you going through your own store? How are you seeing the software for your platform getting onto the actual devices?
That was a great question. You want to answer that for me? No. It is something we are still currently evaluating. We will have our own store, whether it will be a skin of something else or whether it be solely our own. It's something that we're working with. We are certainly looking at the best way to develop the right ecosystem that's going to be the best for our headset, but also the easiest way for our developers and our consumers to be able to access and trust. It is we certainly have been looking at the Google Play and the Google Cardboard ecosystem and these other ecosystems. We are an Android-based system, so it makes it easier to do things like that. But it is, at this stage, it is still something that we are evaluating to make sure that we can work with the developers the best way possible.
It is interesting that in the Android ecosystem, you can think about this range of options. In the Apple ecosystem, you really can't, and a lot of people carry around iPhones. So in solutions like Seabright's, our options on iOS could be very limited. Even though we can support the phones and want to support those phones, the truth of the matter is if we have device-specific apps, potentially Apple won't allow them. So the Android ecosystem lends itself to openness. I think we all want to embrace as much openness. So this is forefront in our mind, and I think folks like Razer are to be commended for trying to open things up. I think that's a smart approach generally.
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Sure.
Oh, you had mentioned the scenario whereby there was an engine that needed to be working on this set of the planet, probably out now.
Sure.
I'm a kidney transplant recipient, so the first thing that came to me with that would be a medical use, tricky operation for surgery,
Yep.
shine and that kind of thing. Consider that.
Sure. So the medical vertical and these app-specific verticals, I think there's a lot of money as a developer to be made working for a large company and doing those. But that's the model. If you're an indie dev and you want to kind of do something a little more solo, you got to do something that's a little less, say, mission critical, like life and death. So I think that we're going to see a lot of what I'll call trivial applications for remote sharing and collaboration, like, well, you can imagine it. But then there are all sorts of other applications where they get more and more mission critical, and I think a lot of people in this room can earn a living working for companies or doing consulting gigs where they're building those apps. So the opportunity is huge. Medical is the toughest, but it's potentially the most money. But if you're doing that, you're probably doing it for a big company. There are only going to be a few small companies that are brave and bold enough to tackle that.
And the other half of my question, the backpack thing, have you considered a bag like a belt version less bulky?
I mean, one of my, wild fantasies.
Batman.
Yeah,
That's exactly.
Yeah. One of my wild fantasies is, regardless of how you strap it on, is that next generation Xbox is that a wearable mobile VR system, right? Is IdeaLens going to go down that path, right? Is Seabright going to go down that path? It's a really interesting question of how do I get PC-like or desktop-like performance into a mobile form factor sooner while providing some flexibility. I don't know, but I like creating the conversation by putting trust like that on the wall. Tim and Brett, do you guys have any comments on anything you guys
You covered it pretty well.
Just real quick on the medical side, it's actually already being done. I've talked to, when I was at VRLA, I was talking to some people in the medical industry that there was an app created for the Vive that allowed them to do pre-surgery and let the neurosurgeon walk through a brain surgery before he goes and does it, because of the controls and that kind of one-to-one experience you can have, to be able to go in there and be able to kind of move things around in that kind of sense. So it's being done. And in fact, from a PC base to a mobile space where you can take it to any room in where you are in a hospital, and it's certainly that's the direction people want to go. So I mean, you're right on track with what you're talking about.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the Intel NUC computer? I mean, it's a little 4-inch square computer. It's a desktop. That's, I mean, this little 4-inch square, form factor. Yeah, I've got one that, I mean, it's an i7 processor that, I mean, I've been doing, just like you're talking about the backpack type thing, where I've run it off a battery pack. It's a jump starter pack for, I mean, a car that's got 38 amp hours. But, I mean, I can run it for several hours and just tether my headset to the thing for, high performance mobile. With the headset. And then if I want to go completely mobile, I just use the headset itself.
So, I mean, that's the general idea of that configuration, right? But I think the core need is more of a GPU problem than a CPU problem.
Right. Yeah, the NUC doesn't have a major GPU.
We have another question? Well, if we have no other questions, we'll go ahead and break. I really appreciate everybody coming out. It was fantastic to have you here. If you have any other questions, we are here all week. You can come up and ask us some questions here. We've got a couple of minutes left as well. Thank you very much. I really appreciate all your time.
Thank you. This is Roy from the News Bubble. I'm ending this broadcast. Talk to you in the next one.